Episode 141 of Australia's #1 marketing show. Listen in as Jim's Mowing's Jim, shares how he founded and grew the second biggest franchise group in Australia.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Australia's favourite marketing show. I am your host, Timbo Reid. You, so much more importantly, are a motivated small business owner who's wanting to build their business through some just really smart marketing on a shoestring budget. I get that. And we are brought to you by the very, very good folk at Net Registry who can help you do that. They can help you get your business sorted online. Domain name registration, website hosting, website design, social media, you know, this whole search engine optimization thing they talk about, you know, that acronym that some of us get, some of us don't. I'm going to touch on that in a minute because Google have made a bit of an update. But Net Registry, you know what? They're just going to sort you out online. Head over to netregistry.com.au. Tell them Timbo sent you, but more importantly, support them because they support this show and they make it possible that I can bring you such amazing small business owners who share some marketing gold, just like is going to happen today. Everyone, also a big round of applause from everyone in the Flying Solo community. Hey, righto, so today's episode, I have a very, very wonderful fireside chat with Jim Penman. Yep, that is Jim from Jim's Mowing, that very famous Australian brand. More on that in a minute because I'll need to explain for you overseas listeners just who Jim is in case you don't get it, which you wouldn't be expected to. I want to give a bit of an update on what Google have just done in terms of updating their algorithm. And then I reckon we'll get stuck in a gym because I'm actually about to hop on a plane to Dubai. I said that in last week's episode, wasn't lying, but I'm actually recording this only one day after putting together last week's episode. If that makes sense, you know, the episode with the guy from The Voice. Well, I thought I'd knock together this episode before I hopped on the plane, just so I'm not kind of stressing when I get back next week that I haven't got an episode out because I like to put one out every Tuesday. All right, guys, so here's the thing. Matt Cutts, head of spam, I don't know, head of something at Google, like head honcho, one of them. Matt Cutts tweeted the other day that the algorithm has been updated and they're calling it Penguin 2.0. Now, I'm going to really simplify this for us small business owners who don't want to get bogged down in the technicalities of it. Basically, the Google algorithm is the equation, the formula they use to decide who ranks where, okay, on a Google search. And we are who Google says we are, so we want to rank well. Now, there is lots of component parts to the Google algorithm and to the Penguin 2.0 update. Suffice to say, here's what to do in order to help your website and your business rank well on Google. Number one, get your metadata right. Page titles, meta description, that type of stuff. If you're using a WordPress website, it's as simple as adding a plugin called SEO, Yoast for SEO. That's YOAST. And it actually has the fields there that you need to complete for every page of your website, every page and every post on your website, so that you can control what Google sees in terms of indexing your site. So get your metadata right. If you don't know how to do that, tell your web developer, can you get my my metadata right? Can you optimize my metadata with keywords? Number two is get your anchor text right. Anchor text is the words on your website that link somewhere. If it says click here, don't know what that means. Google don't know what that means. There's lots of anchor text out on the web saying click here. So just be a little bit clearer. If it's clicking off to a page that says boats for sale in Victoria, then that is the anchor text. That's the text you want to link. Boats for sale in Victoria. That's called the anchor text. And then go to a page that is relevant to what sits behind that text. So you want the page that it links to, obviously, to be boats for sale in Victoria. Deep linking. Link between pages and posts on your website, okay? So from one page, link to another page, and have multiple links on a page with good anchor text. Create an internal web within your website. And the big one, guys, the big one that I've been babbling on about for so long and doing with my podcast is the big C. Just create content, okay? Those first three, that was on-page SEO. The off-page SEO and on-page is creating content, blog, video, podcast, publish. Just share your knowledge with great content. That is that's the small business owner's summary, if you like, of Penguin 2.0, the Google update to the algorithm. That's what you got to do, guys. There's much more to it, but I want to make it simple, and that is a wonderful, wonderful start. Okay, let's get stuck in to today's interview. It is with Jim Penman. Now, Jim happens to founded and own the second largest franchise group in Australia. That is no mean feat. He started in 1982 when he was studying history, a PhD in history. It covers, how's this, 36 industries. He's got franchises it started in mowing, but he's got antennas, cleaning, insurance, painting, paving, electrical, fencing, finance, dog wash, pool care. It just goes on and on. It's an incredible story. And it all started from a part-time lawn mowing business that he started in 1982. Jim's got wonderfully strong views and opinions around customer service. This fireside chat I have with him is a wonderful insight into brand building by default. Now, this guy was a lawnmower. He wasn't kind of this marketing graduate or anything. He was just a guy who set out to start a part-time business, reduce some of the debt that he had from a previous bad business experience. He's gone on to build the second biggest franchise in Australia. It's a wonderful story. You can check him out at jims.net. For you overseas listeners, Jim is this Australian-looking fellow. He uses his image in all his logos. I'll put an example of his logo in the show notes for episode 141, or you can go to jims.net. But this kind of iconic Australian brand that is worth having a look at in order to understand even more about what we're going to talk about in this interview. So that is it. Jim Penman, he shares some marketing gold, and I start by asking him one of the bigger questions going around. Here's Jim. Jim Penman, founder and CEO of the Jims Group, despite not being into titles. Welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
Yeah, good to be here, Tim.
Jim, thanks so much for coming on. You don't know this, but for a number of years when I do speak about brand in one of my presentations, I often refer to Jims as being a really interesting example of successful branding on a number of levels, one of which is consistency of brand, which we'll talk about shortly. But I want to get the big questions out of the way first. Why did you shave off your beard?
Everything's to do with women, Tim. I hate to say it, no business idea. The reason I grew a beard in the first place is my girlfriend at the time, later my wife, liked beards. And then later on I was single, not at my request, but I figured the beard was going a bit grey. This is about 12 years ago, and so it makes it harder to find another lady, so off it comes.
Wow. There was no consideration of brand there at all by the sound of things.
Absolutely none. Purely my love life.
For overseas listeners, and I will put some images of Jim's branding in the show notes of this episode, but the illustration of Jim's head on all his logos and brand identity is very, very powerful, and it involves him, a very Australian-looking fellow with a beard. So hence the question. Jim, can you wrap some numbers around the business as it stands, the Jims Group, total revenues, number of staff, number of franchises, just to give us a sense of what we're talking about?
Latest count, we've got about 3,250 franchisees. As to how much money they make as a group, you probably have to multiply that by about $2,000 a week or $100,000 a year. So I think that comes out to something like about $300 million. Is that right? That's
about it. It's a good number, good round number.
Yes.
What about staff in terms of company staff?
I don't exactly count them, but I think I've got about 30. So it's very, very small staffing level by comparison. But that's because so much of the work is done by our franchisors, master franchisees.
Now, in the early 80s, I thought, let's have just a chat about how on earth this came to be, because, it is an interesting story of having a mowing business, but now is blown out or ballooned out into all sorts of different categories under the Jim's banner. But in the early 80s, Jim Penman, studying a PhD in history, you decided to start a part-time gardening business. What happened there?
Well, that was just a way of funding my PhD, and because I liked it. I liked working outdoors, and it was I liked physical exertion. I've always just loved trees and grass and things, so it was fairly obvious. I must say, when I started, I actually did it again because as women, I thought that I wanted to buy a car, which I couldn't afford, and I thought it would help me to get a girlfriend, which didn't really work very well, but my motives are quite consistent, are they? So I started...
Clearly, I know what drives you.
Yes, that's right. So I started mowing lawns as part-time business, and then when I finished my PhD, well, what do you do with a PhD in history? Well, of course you mow lawns for a living.
Well, there's no money in PhDs in history, obviously.
No.
So you literally, and I've had a couple of guests recently who have gone down that kind of university path and then gone and completely put it aside and chased their passion, I suppose. So was there a point where you made an absolute decision, I am just leaving that PhD behind and going to mow lawns for the rest of my life? Where was that point?
Well, it wasn't quite that. I had a sort of a theory that I wanted to follow up, but I couldn't afford to do it because even though it started in history, it really ended up more to do with neuroendocrinology and those kinds of areas, and I couldn't afford at the time to do anything else with it. So my aim of starting the business was really to be able to fund my research. So about 7 years ago, I actually approached La Trobe University, and I'm now giving them $500,000 a year, actually now to RMIT, to continue to do research. We've had quite a few articles published, and I'm in the process of submitting a book to publishers.
About?
So I'm actually haven't given it up, but the mowing business has been a way of achieving my ultimate goal.
At what point did you get off the tools, Jim? Off the mower?
In 1988.
Right.
For the first few years, I started full-time in 82, and I started mowing lawns myself. I was flat broke, deeply in debt, gradually built it up, started building up and selling off lawn mowing rounds. Eventually I had quite a few subbies, came off the road, and then I launched the franchise the following year, 1989.
I've got to ask, you're doing a PhD in history, probably drinking a lot of beer being a uni student. How did you manage to get yourself in what sounded like significant debt?
Well, not from beer drinking. I'm a lifelong teetotaler.
Right.
Oh, just trying a business thing that didn't work out very well.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Hearing how Jim's Mowing then came about. I was going to ask you what brilliant strategy did you put into naming it Jim's Mowing, but clearly you just kind of thought, well, it needs a name, and my name's Jim.
Yes, well, I got to say, for it was incredibly casual. But I mean, it was originally Jim's Mowing was Jim Mowing, and I used to put my photo on my leaflets, which worked quite well in those days. And so we just never changed it. And then when we did the franchise, of course, you couldn't put a photo on a uniform, so I just simply had a graphic design done of the thing.
It's amazing, I speak to business owners who put so much effort, and I've worked with some putting effort into naming a business, and rightly so. I mean, a great name can be fantastic for the business, but it is what you put into the name. People might have gone back then, Jim's Mowing, can't you be a bit more creative? But really, it's the energy you put into a name after you've come up with it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing about the brand is how extendable it is. I mean, when we first started looking at cleaning, I assumed that nobody would want to get cleaning service from a guy in a beard and a floppy hat, which is a gardening image. So we actually called our first attempt Sunlight, S-U-N-L-I-T, and had a little spray thing, and it didn't work.
No.
And then years later, somebody came to me and said, I want to do Jim's Cleaning. I said, Jim's Cleaning won't work because it's a mowing brand. He said, let me give it a try. And he took it out to the market, and it worked. People liked it. They said, I know Jim's. Yeah, sure, okay. No, give me a quote. It was just that. And then we even do things like bookkeeping and computer services, which is bizarre. I mean, what has a floppy beard and a hat got to do with fixing computers? But it still works.
Well, let's talk about that, because you didn't know this, but I have, in previous marketing keynotes I've given, talked exactly about that whole philosophy of brand extension and how on earth does a mowing business, and I've used you as an example, how does a mowing business become an antenna business or a bookkeeping or a dog wash business? And my answer to that, and here we go, putting myself on the spot here, I say, you know what? You are crystal clear on what the Jim's brand stood for. And in my mind, it stands for trustworthy, friendly Australian. And if that's what the brand Jim's stands for, then why not be able to extend it into categories unrelated to mowing? Because if I'm looking for bookkeeping services, those values of trustworthy, friendly Australian, I want a bookkeeper like that, or dog wash, or whatever it is. Am I right or am I wrong? Drum roll.
Yeah, you're pretty right, except it actually works just as well in New Zealand.
Okay. Trustworthy, friendly bloke, person.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, no, you got it spot on, Tim. That's pretty much what it is. I think it doesn't hurt that people can relate to an individual. There actually really is a Jim, is a strong plus. The most common single question my franchisees get asked is there really a Jim? And they say, yeah, of course, we've met him. We've shaken his hand.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on personal brand shortly, but tell me, so what was the second category, industry? I don't know what the terminology is. What was the second one after mowing?
Cleaning.
Cleaning, okay. So that makes sense, kind of still around the household. When did you go into something bizarre? Well, bizarre, that's harsh. Like tag and what's that thing?
Test and tag.
Test and tag. Or when did you launch into a category that was completely unrelated to the home?
It just more or less came gradually. People just used to come to me more than anything else. Like one of the early ones was fencing, and one of my franchisees said, I want to start Jim's Fencing. And I said, that'll never work. That's a ridiculous idea. And he said, well, just let me give it a try. And I said, well, it's your funeral. If you really want to have a go at it, go. And it works for fencing too. So I thought, oh, wow.
I don't understand.
I don't think I'm any great. I make so many stupid decisions, and I'm wrong so often.
Good on you.
It seems to work.
Why would you have thought? I mean, you should have rung me, because I would have said it will work. Uncategorically, Jim's Fencing would work. Why did you think it wouldn't? Were you being humble?
Maybe. I just don't know. I just really didn't strike me that it was something that would be much of a market for fencing. It's actually in terms of work, it's our number one division. We've got 50% unserviced in fencing. Half the jobs people ring us for, we can't do.
Why? Because you don't have the resource, or because they're too hard?
We can't recruit enough franchisees fast enough.
Goodness
me.
We
knocked back nearly 100,000 leads last year. It's horrifying.
Goodness
we just can't keep up with the demand for our services, but fencing is the most extreme.
Well, anyone listening, there you go, business opportunity right there. I always laugh at the example of the Virgin Group, of which they've only ever closed one category, and that was Virgin Brides. I think that's true, but oh my goodness, it can't work. Virgin Cola worked, Virgin Money, Virgin Trains, but Virgin Brides, who would have thought? Tell me, not every category, well, no, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing not every category that you open under the Jim's banner works. You may have had to have closed some. Tell us about that.
Okay, there's only one category that didn't work as a category, and that was driving school. And the reason we knew that is because typically your driving school, the 18-year-old kids, and they will be told, the driving instructor will be told, I want you to park around the corner, because Jim's is seen as a bit daggy at that age. Kids love us, older people love us, but round about that age group, that was the one division where the brand failed.
Yeah. Maybe you need to call it Jimbo.
No, I think it's just wrong for us.
Yeah.
We've had other divisions fail, but in every other case, it was always because we had the wrong person driving it. We're a lot more careful these days about who we allow to start a new division.
Because you not only don't have any company-run franchisees, let me get the terminology right, but everyone that you have private franchisors as well, correct? So you don't own the actual franchisor?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
We have a role called divisional franchisor, and I'm actually the divisional franchisor for mowing and currently bath resurfacing.
So how do you choose the right person these days?
These days we look for somebody who's got a good track record in business. We've just signed up our last one, which has just signed up last Friday, is Jim's Conveyancing, and we've got a wonderful, wonderful lady running a hugely successful business for many, many years, and she's just dynamite. We've been talking to her for 2.5 years, if you can believe it, to get her on board, because she's so good. That's a slam dunk. That's going to be such a success.
So she's got a pre-existing conveyancing business that's
very successful.
Very successful. So 2.5 years discussion. She's hesitant to go. Well, why would she change? She's already knocking it out of the ballpark by the sounds of things. Where she was set for 2.5 years, she's been hesitant. What was the kind of deal maker for her to go under Jim's?
It was to do with things like the domain name. There were issues and various things, and she's actually in a franchise group herself. So there was a number of different issues, and she's just not somebody who does things in a hurry, I guess. Yeah,
fair enough.
But I mean, she's a spectacular find. I mean, everybody really, as soon as they spoke to her, said this lady will be dynamite. We've just got we've got a Jim's Removal started a few months back, and that's a business that's been going for, I think, 100 years in some form or other. Just very successful, great systems of customer service. We look for that now. We wouldn't just start somebody who's got a business, him and his wife running, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Is there a category where you just can't wait to open, where you go, that's going to be a no-brainer? You've got so many already.
We're always looking for more. We would love to, I don't know. The ones we were really chasing, we've just got actually Securities just signed up a few months back, and that was fantastic. Mm-hmm. We had Jim's Alarms many years ago, and it was very successful at finding work. But the wrong people. We've just now started that again as Jim's Security, and they're great. That was one of the ones I was after. Mm-hmm. I think most of the main ones we're still looking for new divisions, but we really aren't in a hurry. We just have to find the absolute best people. One of the ways we did that was actually by going into the marketplace and ringing around and saying to people, who's the best company in your industry? What's the best business, the best of your competitors? And getting the recommendation and starting them. That's how we did electrical, for example.
Yeah, right. Well, Jim's Tattoos or Jim's Massage?
No. We would never do anything that had any sort of a moral taint to it. I'm not trying to be offensive, but massage has the wrong connotation entirely, and I don't like tattoos, so I wouldn't be part of anyone. I'd be part of cigarettes or anything of that nature.
Tell me, one of the things I love about the Jim's brand is this: your ability to be incredibly consistent, the discipline behind the way the brand's presented, no matter what category you're looking at. You go to the website, it's the same experience. You see someone in a Jim's uniform, you really maintain a very strong brand consistency. How do you do that?
Well, the divisions, the actual branding in each division is done by the divisional franchisor, but they've got to get our approval and work with us, so we do that. And then we actually get the franchisees. They have to take a photo of themselves every 2 years so we can check on their trailers and vans and so forth and their uniform. So we have methods of that nature. Mm-hmm. Most of our effort has actually got to do with customer service more than anything else. That's the biggest effort that we make at National Office.
Well, tell us about that. I've watched your customer service video, and you have very strong opinions and process behind customer service, so I'd love to hear what they are.
We've actually developed our customer service dramatically in the beginning. Just to give you some idea, and you can measure customer service in terms of complaint ratios. Before I launched the franchise, for every lead I got, I tended to get about one complaint because my subbies weren't giving very great service. About 12, 14 years ago when we started looking at this, we found out that the complaint rate had dropped to about 5%. And then we started actually recording complaints seriously and following up and sending out warning letters and even retraining days. And it dropped down to about 1.5%. And we've now just launched a new system with surveys and so forth, which is improving it yet again. So what actually happens is that whenever a poor customer survey comes back, because about 10% of our customers respond to us by surveys, or we get a complaint back, we measure that, and the franchisor then needs to talk to the franchisee about why it happened and see if they can solve it. If they get too many in a certain period of time, we send a warning letter. If that continues in the next period, they're asked to come to retraining. If that continues, they get very severe restrictions on their work, and they usually go, or we find a buyer for them. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a process. We try and warn and warn and warn, but eventually, if somebody can't make the standard, then we'll have to let them go.
And you're big on that personal contact too. If you ring a gym's business, you are going to speak. It's like AAMI do the same. You speak to a person the moment that phone's picked up.
Oh, absolutely. We have a very overmanned call centre by any commercial standards, so that about 98% calls get answered within 20 seconds, something like that.
Wow. Is that all local to Australia?
Oh yes, it's all run here. In fact, it's about 5 minutes from where I'm sitting is the call centre, Australian call centre. You can't run it from India because people don't understand Australian accents. They don't know Australian place names. New Zealand is their own call centre. They wouldn't run from Australia either. They said you don't know how to pronounce our names, so it has to be local.
Wow. I mean, that would be one of the few businesses of your size that I'm imagining has done that. It's almost, your brand almost demands it, doesn't it?
Well, we're in a ferociously competitive industry. We really are. I mean, let's face it. There mightn't be anybody even a tenth our size out there, but there's thousands of independents, and you just have to be very, very good. I mean, like if you're ringing Optus or Telstra, you haven't got a lot of choice. But you could ring 100 different people to get your lawns mowed or your electrical work done or anything. So you have to be very, very good at what you do, and you don't skimp on that kind of thing. Not in my view.
Jim, before we hit record on the interview, he was explaining this is a marketing show. There's a whole lot of small business owners listening to help improve their marketing, and you kind of suggested, marketing, I don't know how much value I'm going to add. I'm not the marketing guy. I'm the guy who's built the business. We've already had some I think good marketing discussion, but you said you had a different view on marketing. Is that the customer service view, or is there more to it than that?
Look, my biggest thing is that advertising as such is to me almost a trivial part of marketing. The vast majority of our work actually comes from people knowing about us, people hearing about us, people who've used us before, people who see us driving by, people who know somebody who's used us. People who focus too much on advertising, I think it's a bad mistake. I overwhelmingly, 98% of my attention would be on the experience people have after they call us. And I'm endlessly pushing that. And I'm not always very popular either. I push people a lot. My franchisees get very upset at me at times.
Give me an example. Go deeper on that, because I totally agree. I mean, advertising is a 15th of marketing anyway, but this concept of the experience a prospect or a customer has from the moment they call you. So, yeah, how would you...
Okay, well, let's just go through the whole thing. Customer rings up. First thing, you've got to pick up the phone fast, really fast. Every second counts. A person will not hang on the phone for 2 minutes waiting to get their house cleaned. So very fast. The person who answers the phone must have a familiar accent. They must be very understandable and understand almost anybody, so must be native English speaker. And I know that's a bit... or very, very good English. Then they've got to understand the business. You can't have it directed to a call centre which answers calls for 20 other businesses. It has to be somebody who's really seriously trained to know exactly how to respond to every question that comes through. Then we promise a 2-hour callback. Now, we give our franchisees 2 hours, but we really ram it into them hard. Do not wait 2 hours. I want 2 minutes. You've got to go back really, really fast. That's almost the biggest single thing. You make an appointment, you must turn up. Absolutely must turn up. If you can't, you must make a phone call. You must be very well signed. You must not have not just signage, but you must have good-looking signage on your vehicle or trailer. You must wear a full, decent uniform when you approach the client. You must use proper stationery. All those kinds of issues. And we notice an extraordinary difference. For example, looking at the income of individual franchisees, the bottom 25% of our franchisees in terms of customer service, we find that about a quarter of those report poor income. But the top 25%, those who are almost always return my calls within 10 minutes and this kind of thing, they would have like 2% report poor income.
2% what's that word you use? 2% what income?
Well, 2% of franchisees report poor income. We survey our franchisees regularly, at least once a year. And so we actually ask them not so much how much they're making, but how satisfied they are, how happy they are, what kind of service they're getting from their franchisor, how helpful their franchise was. We also ask them to rate their income into good, satisfactory, or poor. Mm-hmm. And we're very interested in why people report poor income, because that's, of course, not what they're on about.
What about, so you've tracked that experience from the first point of inquiry. You've gone very deep into some touch points all along the way. What about once they've bought from you, once they've said, okay, let's do business? What's the post-purchase follow-up?
Well, we send a customer survey to every franchisee with a email address. And as I said, about 1 in 10 clients we get feedback from. So we get feedback on what the job was like. Mm-hmm. If a customer has a problem with the job, if they ring the admin centre, that goes through as a complaint and the franchisor gets involved. If they haven't got a response to that first complaint, then they are directly put through to me by email, and I will personally handle the complaint, the problem, until it's been fixed. And if nothing else, I will simply say, get 2 quotes and we'll pay for them.
Wow. There's some good offers there. It's kind of, you're just removing all, you're making it easy for people to buy from you. You're removing all blockages to purchase and just backing up what you say.
Absolutely. I mean, how many businesses of the nature, I mean, we probably service 100,000 customers a week. How many businesses of that nature can you personally get to the CEO of the business and have him personally handle your affair until it's fixed? And that's the obsession that you've got to have. But the remarkable thing, Tim, is that I probably get about 1 contact a week, mm-hmm. because my franchisors do not want to get me involved. They want to fix it themselves.
Yeah. They just go, don't let it get to the end of the line, cut it off at the pass, as they used to say in the Westerns.
Yeah. I don't always make myself the most popular person around, but I make sure things get fixed.
I think that's interesting. I was talking to a client of mine the other day who does want to be the popular person, who doesn't want staff to not like them, who wants to please everyone, who tries to do everything. And it causes a lot of pain in that person's business. What could you say to a small business owner listening who does suffer from that and who's, what's it like not being popular?
I've got very tough skin. I really am. I mean, people say I'm like those rubber things, the plastic dolls that you can knock over, has a weight in the bottom, and you just knock them over and they spring straight back. I mean, I'm exceptionally resilient, but I'm also very minded also with what my core values are. My first priority is welfare of my franchisees. We are also passionate about customer service. And I always have that in mind. What am I really here for? And so when I have a franchisee who says, no, this is not right, you should delete this complaint, I don't think it's fair, I say no, because you are having problems in this area. And if I let you, that's not going to help your business. And it's not going to help your neighbouring franchisees. And I always bring it back to the core issues of what I'm in business for. I feel responsible for the success of my franchisees. Mm-hmm. I feel the most painful thing, the worst thing by far about my business is having a franchisee fail. I find that very, very hurtful.
Well, that was my next question, or one of my next questions, is what keeps you up at night? Clearly, the success of your franchisees.
Yes, and my best times is when a franchisee contacts me and says, look, that the system's really helped me. I've been successful. I went through some hard times, but you really backed me up. But that's the best positive, and failure is the worst negative. And I think you almost have to see it that way. If you run a business that's focused on money, I just don't think it works very well. Not in our field anyway. It has to be focused on the people you're dealing with.
The love of the franchisee, some would go, well, that's just, if the franchisee fails, then the Jim's group fails, and that's a financial equation. But yours goes deeper than that?
Yes. It's a very emotional thing with me. It goes far beyond anything. I mean, I'll take a call at 9 o'clock on Sunday evening, as I did on Sunday night, when a franchisee contacted me with some problems, and I just rang him back, and he was kind of surprised. And I said, well, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah, that's right.
What more important thing do I have to do than looking after you? And he was a great guy, too. He was really finding it hard, but he was pushing it. He had fantastic customer service. And I gave him a few pointers about how he could improve things, but basically said, look, you're a terrific guy. I'm so proud of you having you in the system. And that was a great conversation. I'm sure he will do well too.
How do you maintain the connection? I mean, with a group, what have we got? 3,250 franchisees. Is there regular catch-ups amongst each category that you attend? Are there annual conventions? How do you maintain a personal connection with these people?
it can't be personal with everybody, but obviously we send out newsletters and stuff, but every single franchisee has my direct email contact and my direct phone number, which we don't allow to any outsiders. I tell them sudden death if you give it to anybody else. It's just for you as a franchisee. We have a franchisees forum, which I'm on quite frequently. I was on it this morning, first thing. So I answer questions and get to know what people are thinking. Mm-hmm. So I just encourage them. Every new franchisee gets to hear me talk. And at the end of it, I just tell them very forcibly, I really want you to contact me. And it's so useful. It is extremely useful to know what's going on. Even last week, there was a problem with our system, and one of the guys got very annoyed at me about what was going on. And I said, you're right. There's something wrong with what we're doing, and we changed it.
Mm. As I hear you speak, Jim, not dissimilar. My last full-time corporate job was at Flight Centre, and I worked alongside one of the founders, Jeff Harris. In fact, I shared a desk with him. It was that egalitarian culture, and same thing, being accessible. Sometimes I think in our own minds as employees, you can overbrand someone. And I have worked in businesses where the CEO's untouchable or the founder's untouchable. And I don't know, might have been successful businesses, doesn't set a nice tone though. And that accessibility is powerful.
It certainly is. Our system is designed to be highly egalitarian too. We're the only franchising system in the world that allows franchisees to change to another franchisor if they're not happy, or even to vote out their own franchisor.
Oh, wow. Has it ever happened?
Yes. We actually, last week, we had one group of franchisees who were saying they're not happy with their franchisor. Now, there's a process that goes on. They have a referendum, and then there's meetings and things, and the guy has 3 months. In this particular case, the franchisor is basically a good guy, but he's making some very bad mistakes in terms of advertising funds. He's not revealing what he's doing. He's not consulting enough, and I think we'll be able to help him out. But if he can't, well, then he will go. If he can't satisfy his franchisees, because that's his job. Just as a franchisee's job is to look after their customers, a franchisor's job is to look after franchisees.
Jim, I just want to finish the marketing conversation because just going back to it, a lot of your marketing rings true. I remember I interviewed a fellow last year who has a sandwich shop in Philadelphia, and he doesn't have a big marketing budget, let me tell you. It's in a train station in Philadelphia. He happened to win Sandwich of the Year for the entire United States of America. His whole focus was on quality. Your whole marketing focus is on customer service, but you're much bigger than this fellow's sandwich shop. Do you have a marketing budget that does kind of find its way into sponsorship, advertising, direct marketing, or is it all based around just providing the best customer service possible?
One of the principles of our system is that the marketing funds are spent by the local franchisors for the local franchisees in that division. So we don't get money from mowing and spend it on cleaning or from a different area. The only money we have at national is $6 a month odd from each franchisee, which goes to what we call a branding fund. But in actual fact, I don't even control that. That's controlled by an elected committee of our franchisors. So personally, I have no marketing funds at all. I don't think it's not my speciality.
You got a marketing director, obviously.
No, not at all.
You say obviously.
Sorry, I told you, Tim, I wasn't going to be so useful to you.
No, not at all. I mean, this is incredibly useful. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to go about it. I mean, having interviewed 100, you're my 140th successful small business owner that I've interviewed, and no two stories are ever the same. And let's hope they aren't. I think it's very useful. You're not a business that relies heavily on advertising or social media, or has, your website is a meat, excuse me, don't take offence, but a meat and three veg website. It's functional. I'm sure it works. It does the job, but don't go there expecting a breakthrough web presence. So I wouldn't apologise at all.
Yeah, look, they work. Our websites work extremely well.
Yep.
Most of our work comes off them now.
Yep.
We've also done very well with the direct booking service and so forth. But we just try and make it easy and pleasant for customers. It's nothing splashy. We're in a wonderful situation because we don't have any close competitors. We're probably the size of our nearest 10 competitors combined. So if a person wants a service and they want a reputable, confident brand, Jim's comes to mind.
Now, interestingly enough, a business your size is always going to have detractors, and we've spoken a little bit about that. in doing a bit of a Google on you, there is a very sticky detractor, and I'm not going to go into any detail on that. How do you handle things like that? Someone who's obviously got their nose out of joint. I'm gathering you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so and again, if you don't want to talk about it, I'm happy to not talk about it. I just happened to, it was front and centre when I did some research. What do you do about that?
Look, we had a particular operator who wasn't doing their job. At the virtually unanimous request of franchisees and franchisors, they were, asked to leave, which we can do under our contracts. I said to them, look, I'll sell the business. You can get 80%, standard offer. And he said, no, I'm going to start libeling you, basically. So we eventually, when he wouldn't stop, we took him to court and bankrupted him for libel. Right. And he's still going.
Right.
There's nowhere in the world that I could put up with somebody in a position who won't look after my franchisees. It wasn't a wrong decision. And I'm sorry this guy's gone feral, but there's no choice. You cannot have somebody in place who doesn't do their job, because service to franchisees is an absolute.
Absolute. Interesting, it's a guy, because on the website that they've created, it's an attractive woman. So
yes, well, actually, that came out in the libel action too. He's a sort of an overweight, balding man in his late 60s, I think. He doesn't look anything like that picture.
No, clearly
I have no idea who she is.
Now, Jim, thank you so much for sharing. Listeners, I'm talking to Jim Penman, who is the founder and CEO of the Jims Group in Australia and New Zealand. What would you do differently? If you started today, you're doing your history PhD and you've had a big weekend, you thought, I'm over this, I'm going to go and mow lawns, reduce my debt. What would you do differently if you did that today?
Well, I would have franchised a lot earlier. I didn't realise how powerful it would be. I would be a lot more careful in launching new divisions. I'd find people who are much better. We've had a few failures in the early days, which is painful. I'd have much more rigorous systems in place. I mean, we're still, after 20-something years, lifting our standards. I'd go in right from the beginning with those sorts of standards. I mean, we're learning all the time. There's so much that we've learned. We would have kept closer control of admin centres. I just can't. One of the things I think about business is that every day you've got to be working out, how can I do this better? I've spent 3 decades trying to work out how to do things better, and I've learned a lot. I reckon if I could get a time machine and from 30 years ago, sit in one of my own training courses and go back, it would have taken me half the time to reach here.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
But you learn by doing, Tim, and that's the point. And I'm still learning. There's still mistakes that we make, and we'll look back in a year's time and say, why did we do that? But now we know.
Yeah, that's great advice. Would you, with the franchising, so the one thing you do differently is franchise earlier. Is if there was a business owner listening to this, and I know there will be, who's thinking of franchising, what's that criteria? What's that 1 or 2 or 3 things boxes you just got to tick if franchising is for you?
Well, you must have a phenomenally good business model, which means somebody who's already operating a highly successful business with great standards of customer service, great systems, and it needs to be sizable. If you're a one-man band, forget about it. You've really got to have a business that's got several employees. A lot of people think about franchising because they say, I don't want to do the work, it's too hard, I'll franchise itself. It doesn't work that way. Franchising is more work than you could possibly believe. But it's the potential for taking a business that might employ 15 people and spreading it all over the country or the world that's attractive. But it's a lot of work.
Oh, there we go. What's that? Is that the call centre saying we've had a win?
That's our drinks truck, I think.
Love it. Oh, love it. Hey, Jim, I don't normally ask this, but I feel there might be something I haven't asked you. Is there any question you think, geez, I wish an interviewer would ask me?
No, I don't know.
We've covered good ground.
If I was talking in a more general sense, I would probably have said that the one thing I probably haven't discussed much is to focus on my franchisees, which is really my top priority. To me, my franchisees are my number one customer, even more than my customers themselves. Yeah,
I've picked up on that. In particular, I get that. I mean, the franchisee should be looking after the customers, and you're kind of right in looking after the franchisees. I get that.
And to me, service has more to do with emotion than anything else. I think people see it as in a rational sense. You've got to be passionate. You've got to care about what you're dealing with. I mean, I made so many mistakes in business from the beginning. I could write pages and pages and pages after all the wrong things I've done. But right from the beginning of me pushing a lawnmower around, I was absolutely passionate about my customers. I hated to let my customers down. I hated to do anything less than a perfect job. And I think as much as anything, I never had any idea that it would work out this way. I had no clues. When I first started franchising, somebody asked me what you think you could achieve, and I said, look, I'd like one day, if I'm really successful, to have 100 franchisees. But I always had that passion for my customers and for my franchisees, and I think that's been the difference.
And Jim Penman says he's not a marketer. Well. Hey, what do you love about success, personally? What's success, where you go, wow, love that?
It's a sense of achievement. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to build something like this. It's great to see people succeed.
Yeah.
Just as it's painful when they fail, but generally speaking, most of them do succeed. And I get pride in somebody who's got a great life for themselves and their family, and which they wouldn't have been able to achieve.
Jim, thanks so much for sharing, mate. I might pitch you after this phone call to start a Jim's Marketing. We can talk about that. It'll be a big fee, but I'm sure you're a good negotiator. Thanks, Jim.
All right, thanks, Tim.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did doing it with Jim. He had so much to share, and I've been wanting to have him on the show for a long time. So glad to have ticked that box. 3 quick learnings: know your brand's guiding principles, its core values. That way you know exactly what you stand for. And like Jim, you can expand into areas that you may never have thought possible. Learning number 2, track and optimize your experience or your customer's experience from that first point of contact and be incredibly disciplined with it. I love how Jim does that. And third learning, know who your customer is. Sounds obvious, but we talk a lot about identifying your business's best mates. Jim is very clear as the CEO of that business that his customer is actually the franchisor, not the person wanting their windows washed or their lawn cut, but it is the franchisor. And then the franchisor customer is the franchisee, and the franchisee's customer is the consumer. So that's really interesting in itself. 3 great learnings, plenty more really, but they, for me, stood out. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what? I would love you to just stop right now and go to the show notes for episode 141. Tell me what you liked about that interview, what you learnt, maybe what you didn't like. Huh? Go on. Bit of constructive criticism is always helpful. Okay, enough from me. I'm off to Dubai. I will share that, my experiences from over there in the next episode. Looking forward to that. Got some great stuff happening with the City of Melbourne, doing a very interesting project with them that I'm going to share over the coming weeks. Some little insights. I'm visiting 30 small businesses over the course of the next 6 weeks. So some great insights coming from that. Guys, netregistry.com.au made all this possible. Go and have a chat to them. Any part of your online marketing that needs sorting, Net Registry is for you. Until next time, may your marketing be the most fantastic marketing in the world. I'm Timbo Reid. Love your work. Bye.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.